Uh, Good afternoon. I'll be talking about pre-SDLC processes and SDLC species. My name is Taiwo Ojo. I'm a software system engineering class student. These are the outlines I'll be talking about today. Pre-SDLC processes, the systems development lifecycle, the major information gathering methods, solicited and unsolicited proposals, essential phases of SDLC, and a description of each, then the conclusion. What is SDLC? First of all, SDLC stands for Systems Development Lifecycle. And system development lifecycle, which is a process used to design, develop, test, and maintain software. The SDLC processes also provides a structured approach to software development, ensuring that software is developed in a systematic and disciplined manner. So under this, we have like agile development, we have waterfall method in which they follow this procedure. And this, before the software development life cycle, there is something they call pre, which stands for the processes before the software development life cycle can start. So the first step is the pre-SDLC processes consist of all activities before the consultant team can officially start building a proposed computer system using the SDLC process. After the customer signs the consultant proposal contract, the consultant team can begin developing their proposed computer system. First, the customer must document their computer system needs in a request for proposal, RFP, and post it to an RFP data bank for distribution to consultant teams throughout the country. The RFP clearly states that problems or improvements that need to be addressed by the newly proposed system within a given time frame and budget. Consultant team also reviews many requests for proposals in an effort to find an interesting one for which to compete by writing a proposal and submitting it to the customer. Once a consultant team find an interesting RFP, they notify the customer and begin the proposal planning process, which is another steps that needs to be considered. The consultant team must acquire information for the new system using such methods as interviews, observation, sampling, surveys, questionnaires, and old system files. These actions must substantiate the data specified in the request for proposal, RFP. They should focus on the customer needs derived from the root cause and not from symptoms. That is, if you want to design a computer, you have to know what is the problem you are solving, not just the symptoms of, okay, oh, maybe the computer got damaged, the screen is not working. But you have to know what causes the screen not to work. So that's the aspect of you learning that. Here, the consultant team discuss possible solutions to the customer needs while also addressing important factors of the project, such as feasibility. A feasibility study determines the likelihood the system can be created under the restrictions in the RFP. It addresses the economic, legal, and technical feasibility of the project. If the feasibility study determines the system cannot be created within the guidelines, the consultant team must discuss the constraints with the client to adjust the RFP, lest the proposal effort stops. After proposal planning, a proposal is written in the language of the customer and presented to the customer for evaluation. The customer must first evaluate all submitted proposals and select a few to give a proposal presentation. Then they choose one of the proposed systems to get under contract and developed by the winning consultant team. The customer must reject the other submitted proposals. Therefore, the unsuccessful consultant teams must pay for their time, travel, and other expenses to investigate and write their proposal. Conversely, the customer signs the winning proposal contract which permit the winning consultant team to begin developing their proposed system using the SDLC process. And last two steps is that the consultant team should write a proposal for each proposed system, regardless of the funding source, whether it is in response to an outside request for proposal paid for by the consultant team's company itself, or the team solicit their proposal to funding sources directly. The proposal serves as a description of the proposed system they plan to build. It justifies the value gain from building the proposed system. Only after the team identifies a funding source who signs the proposal contract should the system development process begin. And now, what are the key activities? Like I have discussed about the steps, these are the pre-SDLC key activities to watch out for when you are outlining your steps and designing your proposal, request of proposal. First, you need to identify the problem. The first step in any software development project is to identify the problem or need that the software will be addressed. This involves understanding the business or user requirements and determining the feasibility of the project. These are the steps in which the pre-SDLC outlines. Conducting feasibility study. Once the problem has been identified, a feasibility study is conducted to assess whether the project is technically and economically feasible. This involves analyzing the project requirement, constraints, risk, and benefits. Setting the scope of the project based on the feasibility study. The project scope is defined, which includes the objective, deliverables, timelines, and resources required to complete the project successfully. Eliciting and acquiring knowledge. The project teams needs to acquire knowledge about the business processes, user needs, and technical requirements of the project. This can be achieved through various techniques such as interview, surveys, brainstorming sessions, and research. Outlining the proposal. A project proposal is created to outline the scope, objective, methodology, timeline, and budget of the project. The proposal is used to communicate the project plan to stakeholders and obtain their buy-in and approval. And next, normalizing alternative measures. When evaluating different alternatives to solve a problem, it is important to normalize the measures used to evaluate them. This ensures that the alternatives are compared on an equal basis and the best solution is selected. Request for proposal. When the project scope is defined, an RFP is created to solicit proposals from vendors or contractors who can provide the required software development services. The request for proposal includes the project requirements, the evaluation criteria, and the submission instructions. So whatever you want to submit to the company, these activities needs to be put in place. And these are the steps in which you have to go about it. The request for proposal is majorly you writing your proposal to include the project requirements, the evaluation criteria, and submission instructions. And after you have done that, you can now go to the next step. So the first step is pre-SDLC processes. Now the next step is system development proposals. How do you come up about your proposals? Like I've explained, I outline the steps by step in which you can take. So when the development team does this proposal or when client signs proposal, so you can see the client solicited proposal, and then yes, search national RFP database and advertisement for the type of customized client systems your group wish to build. Let me give an example of this. I want to build a AC unit for a company. They require for an AC unit. Once they put that announcement out, first of all, AC is not something new. I need to go out there and search what are the things that people have done, what ways I can make it better to make my proposal stand out. And this is the stage that you need to do. Once you have done your findings, you have started your request for proposal, you can now communicate with the client your interest in submitting your proposal to build their system. So once you have done this, you can reach out to your client and say, oh, I have this proposal planned out, I have this checkout, so I want to learn more about the system. This I already have an outline on ground. So then you study the client system needs to document and present a competitive proposal. So after you finish talking with the client, you get to learn more about their problem, about the challenges they're trying to solve. So during the talking with them, you do the investigation, the survey, the interview. So these allow you to know what the client needs. And once you know what the system needs, you document it and present a competitive proposal. So when your proposal is approved, you can see the client signs proposals, then you begin the SDLC. If the client does not sign it, then development team loses proposal. So these are the SDLC methodology. First of all, there's SDLC planning phase. The consultant team reviews customer needs in more details than what was covered in the proposal to create the customer final set of needs. After more study and expand the details of the customers. And then the next stage after the planning phase is the analysis phase. The consultant team translates the final set of needs to computer technical function and non-functional. To technical, functional, and non-functional. And then after that, you go to the SDLC design phase. The consultant team here, in this case, generates diagram, illustrations, tables, and figures that represent the computer technical. And then after that, you went to the implementation phase. After you finish your design phase, the consultant team programs and do unit testing of their components, then pass the tested component to the next. Then after that, you go to the system testing phase. The system testing phase, the consultant team integrates the tested component and perform tests of the entire unit. And then after the system testing phase is the system acceptance testing phase, SDLC acceptance testing phase. And this SDLC acceptance testing phase, the consultant team and the customer representative conduct a system walkthrough to approve each step of the acceptance test planned for fulfillment of the system, of the project. And then after that is the system installation phase. And the consultant team structure the approved system on the customer premises, putting into production all at once in phases, all in parallel with the customer's assistance. And the last step is the SDLC maintenance phase. The customer must maintain the system or outcome or outsource the work. Many systems in this phase are running smoothly, requiring no immediate work. Some require approved modification or small environmental changes. Other systems are just studied by technical person. And then after that, so in the process of you are doing your methodology, the phases, like whether you want to do the agile method or you want to do the waterfall method, there are some deliverable documents that you need to take note of, and they fall under each of these phases. For example, the system design spec, this document outlines the high-level architecture and design of the system, including the data structure, algorithms, and interface that will be used. It is typically created during the design phase of the SDLC. Gantt chart, this is a virtual representation of the project schedule, showing the tasks that needs to be completed and the expected duration. It is used to manage project timelines and resources, and is typically created during the planning phase of the SDLC. Planning phase, design phase, and then now the system test plan. This document outlines the testing strategy and procedures for the system, including the type of test that will be performed and the criteria for passing those tests. It is typically created during the testing phase of the system development life cycle. System needs specification. This document outlines the functional and non-functional requirements of the system, including the user needs, business requirements, and technical specification. It is typically created during the requirements gathering phase of the SDLC. And after you do the system needs specification, you go to the unit test specification. This document outlines the testing strategy and procedures for individual units of the system, including the test cases and expected results. It is typically created during the testing phase of the SDLC. And then system installation and configuration spec. This document outlines the procedure for installing and configuring the system, including the hardware and software requirement and the installation process. It is typically created during the implementation phase of the SDLC. And system program implementation spec. This document outlines the procedures for implementing the system, including the coding standard, the development environment, and the testing procedures. It is typically created during the implementation phase of the SDLC. System maintenance specification. This document outlines the procedures for maintaining the system, including the support and maintenance procedures and the requirements for updates and upgrade. It is typically created during the maintenance phase of the SDLC. Acceptance test plan. This document outlines the testing strategy, procedures for the system, including the criteria for acceptance and the expected result. It is typically created during the testing phase of the SDLC. And then last but not the least is the system requirement spec. This document outlines the functional and non-functional requirement of the system, including the user need, business requirement, and technical specification. It is typically created during the requirement gathering phase of the SDLC. In conclusion, these documents serve as input drivers for various phases of the SDLC, as indicated in the descriptions listed above. For example, the system design spec is an input driver for the design phase, while the acceptance test plan is an input driver for the testing phase. Each document provides important information and guidance to the project team and help ensure that the system is developed according to the project's requirements and objectives. Thank you. And if you have any question, I believe you don't need to keep it to yourself. Feel free to ask. Let's discuss this. Thank you.